Let's go to our regular panel on a Thursday. Darren Barnett and Fiona Scott, former Liberal MP, now the Vice President federally of the Liberal Party. Fiona, first to you. I know this has been not a good week for the government, for the Prime Minister. It's been a distraction from where they want the message. But is this a scenario when claim and counterclaim is made that it ends up muddying everything, and when Parliament's here next week, you'll get a situation where it's a pox on both the houses?
Kieran, you and I have seen this merry-go-round a few times, haven't we? Look, there are definitely questions here the Prime Minister has to answer. And, even a couple of weeks ago with the house that he purchased on the central coast of New South Wales, a guy that likes to plead his story that he comes from, Struggle Street and then seeking upgrades and all of those sorts of stuff. That's, I guess, where this becomes murky and challenging. But sadly, I think time and again over the last few years we have seen this becomes, one person throws a stone, somebody throws a boulder, and it just escalates until, I guess you're probably right, that's what we might be looking at in question time next week.
Darren Barnett, what's your take? I've spoken to a number of Labor people this week and Liberal as well, and the message was similar, that the Prime Minister was just having a shocker in terms of the lack of clarity around this. They've provided that clarity now. Has damage been done, or is this a situation where it all nets out pretty even once claims are made on both sides?
I think in the end we'll probably move on from this fairly quickly now that things have been clarified, and there's obviously questions in many directions of who's taken, or not taken, but received upgrades, whether they asked for them, whether they were offered, whatever the case may be. There has been a little bit of skin come off the PM because it probably did take a little bit longer than one would have hoped to have those clear answers. But equally, I think they'll move on. I don't think it'll be a big factor by the time we hit Parliament next week. I think the opposition will consider themselves fortunate to have had a couple of days of whacking the Prime Minister, and we'll probably all move on.
If you were releasing a book, you'd be pretty happy with the coverage too that Joe Aston has received for the Chairman's Lounge this week. There's no doubt about that. On to the big political issue, because obviously that's the politics this week. But the main game heading into the next election is cost of living, inflation and interest rates. Fiona, was there any sign of respite this week with that CPI number?
Yeah, look, I think when Australians start seeing relief at the checkout counter, they start seeing it actually in their mortgage. It's one thing for all of us sitting here at Sky, or those of us in the political class or, commentary space, to make comments. But at the end of the day, when Australians see it in their hip pocket, that's where it's going to really matter. And they don't want to just see numbers come out from economic indicators that they're struggling. They're struggling at the supermarket lineup. And, these are the things that are going to matter going into the election. And, the Prime Minister needs to see that by the time he gets to the election, that Australians are seeing genuine relief.
And it's something I know that the strategists on both sides have been telling their MPs. It's all about cost of living. You've got to stay laser focused on it. Darren, that's not, it's not rocket science, but it's easier said than done. It's not that easy when you've got all these other distractions popping up. But that's where they've got to get back to day in, day out. Both sides are, you'd have to say, in terms of how potent they'll be when they go to the ballot box.
Absolutely. Look, to me, the message that comes out of the numbers this week, if Christmas spending is not out of control, there's a reasonable prospect of a rate cut either in April or February. And if either of those or both of those things occur, that's a really good thing for the government's re-election chances. So the numbers this week, obviously the headline number was within target range. The underlying number was a little bit higher. But I think the government would be fairly comfortable with those numbers. And by the time we get to what's likely to be a May election, people will remember those most recent cuts if they've occurred. So that's entirely what everyone is focused on right now.
You two are both political tragics like me and most of us around Parliament. But I'm going to ask you one without notice. Forecast, Darren, who's going to win the US election?
Oh, Harris by a couple, but too close to call.
OK. Kamala Harris is the prediction. It's too close to call for many, a toss-up. Fiona, your thoughts on where things are right now?
I think it's coin toss. But I mean, I kind of learnt over the last several US elections to not trust polling. I think when you look at Donald Trump, I'm not a huge Trump fan, I might say out there, but the thing with Donald Trump is there's always a silent voter that doesn't say they support Donald Trump when the pollsters ring up, but then do it silently. So I've kind of learnt to not predict American elections because you never necessarily get them right. But I think it would be wrong to dismiss Donald Trump at this point. I think he probably could come along and snatch it.
It's going to be compelling viewing, and you and the three of us will be chatting on Thursday of next week. And as we're looking at the wash-up, whether it is close or Kamala wins or Donald Trump gets over the line, we will know by then. Look forward to seeing you both next week. Thanks for that.